Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're sitting here courtside with a good friend of mine, Kendall Cherry. She's an incredible entrepreneur, executive ghostwriter, soon to be published author, and it's crazy to think that we just met about a year ago.
Oh my gosh,
through a, like me, you know, the love for pickleball. We met on a pickleball court, but it's amazing how our friendship has grown well beyond the court.
Yeah.
As I was driving here, I'm like, wow, like the times that we really have gotten to know each other, it's been off the court. But like we've talked about, you know, countless times, what brings us together is pickleball. And today we're going to keep it real. We're going to have a common theme of just speaking through resilience and breakthrough. Some topics that may not be the easiest to discuss, but we're going to try to peel back some layers and just share some stories, each of us. We'll see, it'll take a life of its own, I'm sure. A couple of the questions that will guide the conversation are, I'll let Kendall.
Okay, we decided we're going to talk about what to do when life is lifing, and how do you recover when the rug has been pulled out from under you. So I know we've both been there, and one of the things I appreciate about Brian and our friendship, you and I obviously met in person, but he travels for work. We're both super busy. Like, you know, we have our separate lives, but one thing I really appreciate about our friendship is you're kind of this friend that I know you're always there, and if I ever need, you know, to call him or to chat through something, like Brian, you're always like open to talking on the phone. Like we have some of our like lifeiest chats, phone side, which I think is taken for granted a lot in this world that we live in. Like everyone is so consumed by their phones, or there's this really big pressure to go, you know, out or whatever else. And like sometimes that just, you know, you're in a really busy season, maybe you're in a more depressive episode, like whatever is going on, but having people that you can still tune into, even though you're not in the same room, I think is really valuable. And it's still feeling like, I haven't seen you in person in several months, but we've talked on the phone, and it's like no time has changed. And I think that's like a really valuable part of just friendship and connection these days that we miss in the life of the internet.
No doubt. Well, you're far too kind. I was actually thinking recently, like, man, I need to be a better friend, just in terms of like the outreach and thinking about today's questions. One of the things that came up was, especially when, you know, I've been, as we all are, in dark times, challenging seasons, is like what's one of the most important things to do is not isolate and to reach out to someone, whether it's a family member, you know, a pastor, a close friend. And so that means a lot that you shared that. I want to always be there, you know, however I can. You've done so much for me. And so yeah. So with that, I think a good way to kick this off is, I think it's safe to say we're all going to be punched in the gut in some way at some point in time, whether we realize it or not. And if you haven't yet, it's okay, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen, whether it's a health crisis or a financial burden, losing a job, losing a loved one, having a breakup, going through a divorce. Like, shit gets messy sometimes, and that's just the reality. And so I think a good way to kick off is just, Kendall, like, you know, you've shared a lot with me, and I know it'll be so valuable for the audience to share some of the things that you have gone through when the rug has been pulled away. Share whatever, as much or as little as you'd like, and then some of the things you did to kind of take one step forward.
Yeah. So I'm kind of going through a really interesting season right now. I'm somebody that's typically like very high achieving, high performing, like go, go, go all the time. You know, I run my own business. I make my own money for myself. I'm single, so, you know, single income household, all of the struggles and the burdens of what comes with that. And I'm kind of going through this, I'll call it a depressive episode. I've just experienced a pretty extreme amount of grief. There's no death, but I mean, pretty much, and I'll say an existential death is kind of being, you know, rebirthed right now, or the kind of death and rebirth cycle. And I'm typically somebody that can keep pushing forward. I'm typically the person that, you know, you keep moving, like you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you do what you can, you push through, you do whatever you can. And I, over the last couple of months, noticed that my typical get up and go, like, wasn't going, essentially. Like something was very wrong. And I had a depressive episode a couple of years ago that felt sort of similar, but not like this. This was deeper, this was darker. I set some boundaries with some people in my life where, that it needed to happen for me to be able to take care of myself. But the grief that basically started and created was devastating.
Yeah. Oof.
To the point where I had to get on an antidepressant. And it's been a huge adjustment for me. I'm not typically somebody that would maybe want to lean on medication, but I'm kind of viewing it as a tool in this season. And if you're somebody that, you're watching this right now and you're struggling, you're at home, I'm not sure what it looks like. For me, what started happening was I basically was like struggling to do basic things like feeding myself, like, doing some work, like getting out of the house, keeping moving. It was like my body just like wasn't responding how it normally would. And it was really scary. I didn't have a lot of people. It was the holidays. Like a lot of people were super busy too. Like my normal support system wasn't there. And so I just kept like slipping into this deep depression. And, we always see, it doesn't always feel like, the Zoloft commercial where there's like a rain cloud over your head and it looks like that. And whether you're somebody that's going through it right now, or maybe somebody that is, like, I know this is true for a lot of my friends that I'm really close with. They're like, well, you don't look depressed. Like, you don't show those signs. First off, I'm good at hiding it because I don't want to make people uncomfortable. And
just real quick right there, I feel the need to share. I don't mean to get you off track, but I think that's the first thought that came to my mind, and myself included. Like, I have become very good at just hiding things, masking things. I think as a society we have as well, especially what social media has done in terms of just like, surface level. Life's amazing.
Yeah.
But in reality, everyone in some way, shape, or form is fighting a demon that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And so, like, keep going. I'd love to hear kind of like how you address that.
Yeah.
And especially when you were sharing, it really hit, because I could relate from past experiences when you were like just struggling to get out of bed or to brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Or those some things. Some people may not be able to, relate, but if you can, like, it's like that's a real struggle.
Yeah. The thing is, I think everyone feels like we have to put on this mask of like, I'm strong. This is what strength looks like. Like, the strength equals you keep going. I would argue that in seasons where things are really dark, strength actually looks like doing absolutely whatever you need to do to make sure that you are taken care of first.
Agreed.
So that literally could look like I drank a glass of water.
Yep.
I watched a timer to, know that I made it through the next 60 minutes. Like, what you always tell me, like, you just got to make it through the next hour. Then you got to do it again. Then you got to do it again. Like, it can be that simple. But what I'll say is if you're somebody that struggles with like the masking, like this, what I look like right now, like this is what depression can look like. We see a lot of times people, after they've maybe taken their lives, everyone's so surprised, everyone's so shocked. Like, they seem so happy, they seem so whatever. A lot of the time, those people are masking too. And it's the hardest thing I've had to do in this season, but it's one of the most helpful. It is extremely vulnerable, and I would say only do this with people that you feel safe with. I have people that are very close with me. They're kind of more in my day-to-day, like texting, or we'll talk or whatever, or I'll have certain friends that have helped me in the past that I would lean on, and I just say, hey, I'm not good. It's terrible admitting that you need help. It's very uncomfortable.
But I also feel like that's a sign of strength.
It's a sign of strength. I'd say like, hey, I need you to know I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I need you to check on me. I'm not, this isn't from a harmful situation, but I really just need you to like check on me, see how I'm doing. This is what I'm going through. And it creates two things. The first is that you are not a weak person for asking for help. First, you get to receive love from the people who care about you, and admitting, there is vulnerability in sharing that you need help. And so you create an opportunity for you to receive love, but you also, everyone loves that feeling when you give a gift. You also give someone else the opportunity to give And it's the people that care about you. They care about that you don't feel good or that you don't feel like yourself.
Yeah.
And so it kind of creates this like giving and receiving energy that feels really authentic when you don't know how to do the basic functions. I've had friends, offer to bring me dinner. I've, even just getting out of the house for a couple of hours, going for a walk, like doing stuff with people. It doesn't mean you have to go overboard on the social activities, but even just letting someone know. Brene Brown talks a lot about shame lives in darkness, but the moment you shed light on it, the shame cannot live anymore. Most depression, and especially when it starts to perpetuate, it's day in and day out, that like lack of light is the thing that causes it to keep going. So the moment you can shed light, whether that's telling someone else about it, getting out of the house, like literal sunlight, vitamin D, whatever you can do to kind of help yourself, even if it's a happy light. Like maybe you live somewhere where it's super cloudy all the time, like even getting something like a happy light to do whatever you can, like physical light from like the love of your friends, that is one of the things that's going to help get the darkness to just
really
dissipate a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's, and I mean, just making it as simple as we can. For my own life example, living in Ohio versus living in Texas, like we're living in the Midwest, which I missed dearly, it's home, but a lot more gray clouds and gray days, and living in South Texas, like it's sunnier way more often, and it truly affects the mood.
Mm-hmm.
So like light and darkness, and from just an applicable secular way of being, and in the spiritual realm as well, like the light and faith and those sorts of things all help us kind of just put that next foot in front of the other. But yeah, no, I mean, I really liked what you said in terms of like maybe just having a glass of water is a win,
Mm-hmm.
or getting out of bed is a win.
Yeah, putting pants on.
Yes, like just take the next step, because a lot of folks, they don't, and that's what's unfortunate. They make some decisions that maybe if they would have just reached out to a friend, a family member, or did, try to just say that one prayer that they've been considering. Maybe that could have been the shift or a transformation in some way.
Yeah. The secret, I think, it's really tough when you're in it. Like there have been moments when this was happening. Like, I mean, I would just stare at a wall for 30 minutes. Like, I'm like, this isn't me. I feel alienated because this isn't me. The best thing that you can do, it's easy to say, like, just call someone, like, do these things. But sometimes when you're in it, it's extremely hard to actually do. Like, for me, one of the hardest hurdles I've been is, like, just getting outside to walk for 20 minutes or just leaving my apartment.
Yeah.
And it's really tough, inertia, basically. The only way to overpower it is to do what you can to create momentum.
Yeah.
So momentum can look like the hardest thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to drink a glass of water or whatever else. But those small things over time are kind of what help you to climb out. So, don't overexert yourself doing like one really big task or big action at first. You're likely going to just end up making yourself more tired, which depression feeds on, just feeling depleted. Do one small thing. That one small thing can create the next small thing. And then over time, that momentum is really the thing that can start, at least, even if it just lasts one day and then you go to sleep and you have to start, over again, it's at least better than, okay, I did my one, heroic effort, and then here I am, like, completely depleted for the next 5 days. Like, it really is about the smallest, the most simplest, the most caring things that you can do for yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's making me think of, going back to scripture, and we see, stories way back in the day with Joseph and Job, or is it Job or Job? And even Paul, I think it was in the Corinthians, like he had literally asked God, like, hey, can you remove the thorn from my flesh? Like he asked like 3 times. Mm-hmm. And I think God's response was like, no, my grace is sufficient. Mm-hmm. Like when you're weak, I'm strong. And I remember someone had shared that with me when I was, about 5 years ago, when life was flipped upside down. And that totally changed my perspective of of weakness and trials and suffering, because it's like, okay, well, maybe like this trial is a mercy in disguise, or this weakness and suffering, there's certainly meaning, and there's a greater good that I don't know in this moment, but like it's not like a punishment, but it's like maybe preparing me for something that I can't see right now. But that's where the faith comes into play. Like today's reading, I was reading when I woke up, and it was talking about the parable of the mustard seed, and
Nice.
it's basically like in simple terms talking about like, take that step, shoot your shot. That's all we have to do. Don't worry how we're perceived, what people are saying, what's being said on social media. Just take that step, and then leave the rest of the grace and mercy and providence of God. And that to me is so comforting, because it's like, you know what, I've been in a place before in life where I would care so much of how I was perceived, trying to be liked, trying to do the right thing. And not that I'm not anymore, but it's like, no, like I'm gonna live true to myself.
Less pressure.
Exactly. We live lighter, and it's more of a sense of peace. And
Yeah.
so
I love that it's the mustard seed, because this is an image that comes up for me a lot right now, is just the idea of like, if we're planting seeds, like we don't always, the same day you plant it is not the same day you reap the fruit.
No.
And the thing that can be so hard is like those small actions that you're doing, creating the momentum. It might feel like you're digging your hands in the dirt, or you're overwatering, or if you're really and truly trying to grow a plant. The more you mess with the seed in the soil, it doesn't have the space and the oxygen and the just time and energy it needs to actually grow.
Right.
If you keep finicking with it too much, like it's not going to actually, root down, which is the most important part, is finding the rooted and kind of grounded center.
Yeah.
That's what creates growth, whether it's growing out of, depression, or even in your professional career, maybe, let's say you lost a relationship and you're ready to grow into something new. Like whatever the thing is that you've lost or you're trying to regain, there is often this like energy of like, I must do all these things, I must fix it. I know I felt like that. Like I feel so terrible, like I'll do all the things, I'll do all the meditations and mindsets and prayers, like I'll try anything.
Yeah.
And it's this scarcity, like I just picture myself like clawing at soil with this seed that's just like, can you just care for me? Can you just nurture me? Can you just love me enough to let me be and do the things that are actually going to care for me?
Right.
It might not look like how you think, and it might look like just taking a nap, or it might look like just drinking a glass of water. But the thing here is like, we are living organisms. We are basically just little walking seeds on this planet. We need sunlight, we need water, we need, a sense of grounding. We need all of these things to really live and thrive. And so it sometimes doesn't have to look like just like messing with the soil. Sometimes it's just planting the seed, doing the different things that you need to nurture it, and then letting that be the secret to the growth and the regrowth as well.
Yeah. No, that's and the regrowth and planting the seeds. I love, because this is just bringing more thoughts to mind. I used to be very into goal setting, and not that I'm not anymore, but more often than not, even though I was putting in so much work, I wasn't hitting these damn goals. And I'm like, damn, like, okay. Like, maybe are these too aggressive? But it's like, no, you want to be, you want to set ambitious goals, and you want to dream big and those sorts of things. And then I was sharing this with, a mentor, and who's also, a man of God. And he said, Brian, let me challenge you to rethink of how of goals. And essentially, like, the takeaway is not really to do that set goals anymore, because he said basically a goal is like a dream with a deadline. And he said your goal is the inputs and what you're doing every single day to control what you want to achieve, but the deadline is God's job. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like that, it was so helpful for me. And I'm not, the takeaway here is not to set goals, but more so like, look, set them, but set them in, for me, it's more like, what am I going to now do daily with the inputs in breaking it down physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like, how am I feeding all of those 4 buckets for me to be optimized in the best way possible to achieve my goals in those 4 facets, professionally, personally, relationships, you name it, with my job, with my travels, in making content. And if those, and as I've done that more in more recent months, focusing on those inputs, it's amazing how, yeah, like, it just, things kind of just take care of themselves, you know? And I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. The thing that's coming up for me, it's definitely more of a masculine energy of like, I've got to do spreadsheets, goals.
Probably.
You know, like
Yeah.
small task deadlines. Like it's a very forceful, like maneuvering way to do this.
Yeah.
That's a very masculine take on it.
Probably.
The more feminine take on it is probably more intuitive. It's more
Sure.
laced in trust. I would argue what I tend to lean on is the example of like the divine feminine and looking to like Mary as an example of what this
Yeah.
would look like. Like Mary knew when Jesus was born what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, and the level of release, the level of trust, the level of surrender to still nurture and guide, knowing what the end would be, the goal.
Yeah.
Not a great one in this, you know, it's a you know, a terrible circumstance, but knowing what would happen afterwards.
Yeah.
Eternal salvation is the goal.
That's so
if
good.
if that's true, like you can know all of the other touch points, the trials and tribulations, like she knew all of that when Gabriel came to her.
Yeah.
She knows all of this, and yet she still surrenders, guides, nurtures, and protects Christ at every stage of his life. And
It's a great perspective.
that's the point, I think, with goal setting or anything else, is just this level of trust and surrender. Our society is it's, you know, we don't need to get into the specifics, but it leans more patriarchal. It leans more masculine. We live in a world that lives with systems and organization and all these things. But what we really need, I think, is a lot more trust, a lot more intuition, and reconnecting
I need it so
to
much more.
Yeah, we need it. We
I'm
need it so
getting
much.
convicted listening to you. Because I'm like, what's the next system I need?
Yeah, no, the next system you need is to let go and to surrender.
Yeah. And it's hard.
And it's extremely hard,
so hard
to do.
It's so hard.
But I think there's a really great book. I don't know the author. It's based on, I think a saint wrote it, and it's based on the visions that other saints, the mystics, have had of Mary. I think it's called The Life of Mary.
Okay.
And it puts everything in perspective of like everything that she knew during the process. But I found reading that to be really helpful with, even if you're not a religious person. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're Catholic, Christian, spiritual, maybe not in the atheist category, but you know, if you consider yourself some level of spiritual, you can look at Mary as an example of divine feminine energy.
100%.
Like, and it doesn't matter if you believe in the Christian, you know, context of it, but if you look at it more as a story and as a universal theme for you to pull wisdom out of, as I choose to, that becomes a very, very great example of, you know, at least what feels a little bit more caring and nurturing versus you got to get up,
Go.
regimented, like drill sergeant. That's, I would argue, especially if you're maybe a millennial or Gen Z, like that is how our parents parented, because that's how they were parented.
Yeah.
So it's very hardcore, you know, have to, you know, growth at all costs, whatever it takes, self-sacrificing. There's a calmer, more nurturing, warmer, empathetic way to go about, you know, goals. If you were parented like that, or if you're used to that, and it's no one's fault other than just the society and systems you grew up in, there is a different way to do it, but it might feel unfamiliar to you.
Oh,
so
for
even
sure.
if you look to Mary as an example of like, oh, this is what this could look like, it's a really great way to reparent yourself and to learn new, more, what I think are a lot more nurturing ways of setting goals, healing, growth, you
Yeah.
know, personal or professional development.
Taking notes. That's good. That's really good. I mean, I think it's, and for the guys out there, like, that's not to say like, oh, we can't do that because that's a feminine energy. Am I right? Like, no, we should take the good from that.
Everyone is both.
Right.
Everyone is both.
Exactly.
Feminine and masculine. I just hit my mic, but I have moments. I run a business. Like, I have to know the spreadsheets. I need to have a plan for everything. I need clients to come in at certain times. Like, there is a masculine side to that, but there's also the trust. The clients are coming. The money is coming. The opportunities are coming. There's everything is a balance. Everything in nature is both, and it's when we get out of balance where we start to experience health problems, we start to feel burnt out, everything else.
Yeah.
Usually when that happens, something is unbalanced because of the society we live in, probably tending to be a little bit more on the masculine side, but it is supposed to be both. It doesn't matter if you're, a guy, girl, they, whatever. Everyone has masculine and feminine energy.
Sure.
It doesn't, just because you're a guy, you're not going to have.
Yeah. No, exactly. So
it's about
takeaways being like there's a lot to pull from that. So like, okay, as we go about our day, and in my experience, like every day is so different. One day I could feel so confident, so faithful, so trusting, and then the next day I wake up and it's like, who am I? I'm so different. I feel, low energy, anxiety's creeping in, I'm stressed. Like, how am I then gonna get through this day? And like we were yesterday, I was on cloud 9, feeling good, and so like, I'm sure in some ways you could relate. Like, what actions are you taking to combat that?
Yeah.
And to have more faith.
We live in a highly, highly overstimulated society. We're constantly on our phones. We're constantly consuming content. Depending on what your work life is and what, even just hours in a day, you have a daughter, if you're someone, maybe you're dating, you're around a lot of different types of energy day in and day out. Doesn't matter what it is. We are perpetually overstimulated as a society.
Very much.
So the truth is, you're probably tired. You
Yeah.
probably need rest and like a real day off. One of the things that I try to do on the weekend especially, I write on a screen all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like my job, I do a lot of podcasts, I do a lot of Zoom calls. So I'm on a screen. Friday at 5 to Sunday, I do a couple self-care practices. One is called Book in a Weekend, where I read a book in a weekend.
Yeah, you're really good about that.
I'm
As long
good
as
about
I've known
that.
you.
I am a writer, but I try to stay away from screens. I try to stay away from doom scrolling, anything. Our bodies, if you think about just like the creation of technology, our bodies were not meant to consume 20 TikToks in an hour. Like that's so much information in such a short amount of time. Your nervous
Yeah.
system is completely fried.
Yeah.
It's not, you're just not meant to consume like that.
Well, when I'm trying to be better about it, but when I do, and in the few times I try to reflect and like, what did I just consume? I couldn't
don't remember
a single thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I feel so like I just wasted time.
Yeah.
But in the moment it's like, oh, I could justify it because I'm like, oh, that's so entertaining, that's so good.
Or
And don't get me wrong,
you think
sometimes
you think you're decompressing.
Yeah, there's sometimes like, especially very much so now, like super deliberate about like who I'm following and what I'm consuming. So like it's very intentional and if it's something that like really resonated, I'll literally stop it and write it down and then try to like reflect on it or pray on it or be it whatever. And that's where social media can be used for like in amazing ways. Done the right way though.
Yeah.
So like
I set times. Like the thing that's challenging is because of the nature of my work.
Yeah.
Like I do have to be on social media and consuming a bunch of content.
It's your job.
It's part of it. I'm very strict about, okay, I set times in my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
This is when I'm commenting or engaging. This is when I'm checking my email. That's scheduled in.
Okay, so
and I try to do it.
Time.
I block the time. On my weekends, I really try to stay away from screens. This is a new development. I have like randomly gotten really into opera.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Nice.
I don't know why. But before this week,
Uh-huh.
I didn't own a TV. I just am not watching TV. I'm reading pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
Something that's helpful, in front of my bed, I have a big wall. And so instead of staring at a blue light and a screen, because I want to watch operas, I got a projector.
Okay.
And I put it on the top of my headboard. I take it down when I'm done, but I project operas onto my bedroom wall.
Cool.
It's not a screen, so it's a little bit easier on the eyes. I wear blue light blockers just in case, but that even just the lack of stimuli, super helpful.
Interesting.
But I would say like in anything, and I'm a writer, so I'm definitely more prone to reading. I know some people don't have quite the attention span for that, but
Me.
I know. I wasn't going to say it, but
I did.
I know. We love, but the thing in anything, you can choose your art. You can choose however you're going to recharge, but good inputs yield great outputs is the thing I always think about. So for me, and especially because I write for a living, and for me to crank out content to the like level and caliber that I am, I read like 2 hours a day.
No, it's insane.
It's crazy. But the way I think of it is like a lot of people are on TikTok for 2 hours a day, or they're watching Bravo shows for 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
I just prefer to recharge that way. I'm an introvert, so I'm kind of in my own headspace. Everyone kind of has their own thing, but I think finding recharging practices that feel restful and restorative to your nervous system are the most important thing. That could be, it probably needs to be at least one kind of movement. So that changes for me. Sometimes it looks like strength training, sometimes it looks like walks, sometimes it looks like pickleball. Like pick a movement thing. It doesn't have to be like an intellectual engagement, but I would say like an artistic thing.
Yep.
How can you connect into other people's stories? Is it movies? Is it TV? Is it, a book? Maybe it's a podcast, as long as it's not in your same, it doesn't feel like work. So like maybe do something not related to your work life. Maybe it's opera. Like it could be so many different mediums, but I find that consuming art in particular, for me at least, and I'm definitely a more creative person, but there's a lot of those same stories. Like, we talked about, Mary and her story. That is the purpose of art. It's meant to like reflect what's going on in your life in a very soothing way without having you think, give me the data, give me the masculine, like what's gonna come out from it. It forces you to reflect on what's coming up. And that's a slower process. It's not sexy. You have to sit with your feelings. That doesn't feel as fun.
Right.
But I would argue you'll feel and find more like yourself in the process. And that is what rest and restoration look like.
No, that's good. I mean, thank you for sharing that. That's rest and restoration. It's critical, and for all of us, there's no doubt about it. One of the many things I've always loved about our friendship, like you help me see things, like in a lot of friendships, see things just a little bit differently, because we all have our own beliefs and values and way that we were brought up, but like, there's so many other different viewpoints out there that, will only help us grow, and so you've helped me grow in a lot of ways, and that's another tangible way, thing that I can do, that I certainly struggle with, because it's constant, that more so probably the masculine energy of I got to go, I got to do, I got to achieve, it's not enough. Yeah. And in reality, it's just like doing more sometimes is actually worse.
Yeah. You said something interesting here that is deeply rooted under the need to do more, have to do more. It's not enough. I'm not doing enough. There's not enough time. Enough. Yeah. And it's this belief that it's laced in scarcity and it's laced in lack. Who I am underneath everything, it's this belief like I couldn't be enough just doing what I need to do. You can still push toward the goal, but it's secretly under the radar, a secret way that our self-worth kind of sneaks in. If I don't, perform at this best, will my boss not recognize me? If I don't perform at this best, if I don't get this promotion, is everyone going to think I'm worthless, useless? Insert whatever. Everyone kind of has their own secret subconscious belief about like unworthiness and not being enough, and that is underneath and what the art is teaching, or whatever else, the reflection, the real inner work, not to spoil the ending for you, but the deep work of what's actually happening is, am I enough? Do I believe I'm enough to take the time that I need to heal and restore? Yeah. And that is the hardest thing to do, because we live in a world that says, no, you need to do more, 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 more. The opposite of more is not enough. And that, I think, is if you can get to this place of understanding, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to do more. You need to do what's aligned for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times alignment, you
It's
could,
different for every person.
you could do 15,000 things that are the wrong thing for you and make zero progress, or you could do 5 of the most aligned things. Even some of those look like rest, and get there 20 times faster because it was exactly what was supposed to happen in divine timing.
Well said. No, that's really good. And you can't pour from an empty cup. And ever since becoming a father, like, that's something we're far from. Like, you know, there's always, we're all on our journey and of just improving. And I don't think we ever arrive per se, but like just kind of taking those steps forward. You know, but every year that passes, being a dad, I find it more important to recharge in some way, you know, because like I notice if I'm on empty, low power mode, like I'm not showing up in any way for my daughter. I'm not present. I get more agitated. And but if I'm like doing the simple things of structure, which I think structure helps us with more stability and having us show up, you know, in our best light. It's having those non-negotiables of like, and it goes for everyone, like getting some type of movement in some way, getting a sweat. For me, I love the sauna. It helps. I mean, there's so many benefits to it, but it's just, for me, it's just the mental clarity. Any sort of movement, fitness, and then the spiritual, like wherever you are, we are on our spiritual journey. We're spiritual beings, whether we realize it or not. Whether that's a belief in a creator or a belief in something else. So like whether it's prayer or whether it's meditation, slowing down the mind. Like I think when we can do that, and I'm saying this, but this is more so for myself than anyone else because I need to do it more. When I slow down, it's amazing. Even after like a couple minutes, like these like downloads, these thoughts like come in that like, oh man, that's the answer to something I'm facing in my life right now. You know?
There's a reason why your best ideas usually happen when you're in the shower or when you're on the highway and having highway hypnosis.
Yes.
And it's because you're out of the need to know exactly what the thing is.
No doubt.
You know, it's when you get into, like, neurologically, you're in more of what's called a theta brainwave state. It's basically you're more, it's the same thing that happens in meditation.
Yeah.
Happens when you're in the shower. You're kind of just like in a very relaxed state.
So relaxed.
Probably happening to you in the sauna, but that's because when we're constricting, it's kind of like a hose. When we are over here trying to, you know, have so much control, we have a hose and we've just put a big crank in it.
Yep.
And no energy, be it an idea, be it a solution, be it, you know, a way to make more money, whatever the thing is, if your hose has a big old crank in it, it is not going to come to you. But the moment you can let it go and kind of let it flow, that's the moment it's going to come to you.
Magic happens.
That's when the magic happens, the big download happens, the epiphany, the eureka, like whatever you want to call it. That's when it happens. It's always coming. It's going to arrive. I know I feel this way a lot where I'm like, I know a big because I get really big downloads. I get like full visions of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I know it's going to happen, and it's well, where is it?
Exactly. It's in the waiting. That's the hardest. Like, it's like, okay, I know it's going to happen, but where is it? Is it another day? Like, it's another season. And then when it's not coming, that's when the doubt creeps in, you know, and it's hard to sometimes stay faithful when we're in the unknown.
Yeah. This is why a practice on gratitude is so important. Because gratitude is one of the things that's going to ground you in the present, and it does two things at the same time. Gratitude is basically your way of signaling, I may not have everything I want, but what I have right now is enough.
Yep.
Sends the signal, okay, I'm good. I really appreciate this about my life. You can also be grateful for things that haven't happened yet. So what I've done in the past, I'll be like, you know, I'm so grateful for, you know, maybe I'm in a season of like, I'm kind of having to rebuild some friendships. I'm really grateful for friendships that help me feel grounded and most like myself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't have as many of them as I'd like. Wouldn't you know it, and this happened to me last year, that's the day I randomly met someone at pickleball who ended up being a really close friend.
Yeah.
Like, so you can be grateful for things in the future, but anytime I've ever done that, and I'll write things in the present moment, but I'll say, like, thank you for an apartment that makes me feel at home and makes me feel really grounded and safe and centered. Those things, you start to appreciate what you think you want in the future, but you start to see it in a different way in the present. And that's what bridges that gap between what you still want and what's already in front of you.
No, thank you for bringing that up. Gratitude it's something that we hear from everyone all around us, like, but it truly is.
Yeah, it's not like, I'm grateful for my dog. I'm grateful for my house.
Like, it really is powerful.
Yeah.
Like,
you have to feel, I've done this before where it'll be like, 10 things I'm grateful for. And you just like write this like very superficial list just to check it off, done.
Yeah.
Masculine energy. Got it. Where's my stuff? I did the thing. So like, I've earned it.
Yeah.
And the thing about gratitude is you have to feel into what the emotion is behind what you're grateful for. So slow the process down. It's not fun, but write 3 things. Take 30 seconds and just like feel where you noticed the gratitude in your body. Do you feel it in your heart space? Do you feel maybe in your cheeks you're smiling a lot? Like when you think about, if you're grateful for your daughter, visualize a memory you've had with her, or visualize a memory you want to have in the future. Because what it's going to do, first off, it's going to soothe your body a lot more. So you're just going to feel better. But what it's also going to do is it's going to just send that energetic signal. It's almost like a little mini prayer. It lets you call it into the future, but it also helps you appreciate and notice, even if you are going through hell on earth, you're going to notice some other moments in the present, and it's going to shift your perspective to where that light can still come back in.
100%. Well, again, as I've gone through my journey of life, like, in older I've gotten, it's amazing how we don't always have to like the things we're grateful for. Like, I look back, all the things that I'm now grateful for in the middle of it was absolute torture and hell.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, well, now I wouldn't show up as who I am today if I hadn't gone through that just absolute turmoil, you know? And that's, and so, like, I think that's a great, and tying this back to, like, pickleball in some way is the sport just continues to explode. Something that I'm thankful for and grateful for is just to be on the forefront of a sport that continues to just expand beyond the U.S. globally. Like, the PPA right now is in Australia. And that's something a year ago that probably wasn't even being discussed. It's like, who knows where the sport's going to be 12 months from now? It's wild. And just think of, like, the friendships that we'll all possibly have a year from now, 5 years from now, because of pickleball. So, like, a simple thing that we could be thankful for is the sport. Maybe it's not pickleball. Maybe it's tennis. Maybe it's not a racket sport. But whatever that sense of belonging and community that you have, like, that's something. Life could be upside down, but that's something to be thankful for.
Yeah. I mean, I think to just kind of like wrap it up and just bring it full circle here, like, we started the podcast kind of talking about how we met, right? We met because of a pickleball court. And now here we are having a conversation like this on a couch, like, about all of this stuff, right? And I think that is, like, the beauty of, like, pickleball is really just a gateway for a community. Yeah. That's what it's doing. It's facilitating connection and community in a world that it feels harder than ever to connect with people. Yeah. It's really just another way to facilitate that human connection. And so I think it's really cool that, if it is growing, so quickly, you can connect with people from anywhere in the world. Like, people are watching this, they're not just in Austin, like where we are right now. Yeah. And I think that is something to be really grateful for, is the amount of just, like, touch points we can have with people now. Like, sometimes there's definitely, like, some negative parts about technology, but I think about that a lot, where I'm like, man, there's like so many cool people. I've made friends with people that live in other countries,
Yeah.
and you're kind of like, I've met them in real life after we've
Oh,
like
that's so
met on the
cool.
internet, and you're like, are they going to be as cool as they seem in the DMs? And they're usually cooler.
Even cooler, yeah.
Yeah, and
No.
but it can be that genuine when you show up with authenticity, and I think that's one of the things, like your channel and just the pickleball sport in general. It's allowing people to find a way to connect in a way that feels authentic to them. I mean, and again, not to be meta, but that's
No.
literally our story.
No, it is. No, it's
Because
wild.
we technically met
Just a year ago, not even a year
a
ago.
year ago, but like, I think I DM'd you about your content, if you remember correctly. Like, I'm telling you, this is what happened. You probably don't remember because you're old and senile.
Yeah.
But
okay.
yes,
We'll have to
I had DM'd you about your content because I wanted to talk to you about
I
it.
totally thought we met at Urban. And
We did, but I had coordinated to meet up with you when you were there.
Okay.
We'd met at a pickleball
sorry.
court in
Okay.
Urban. Doesn't remember our origin story.
No, that's not true.
It's true.
Okay.
He
Okay.
he blacked out.
No.
But so
But,
the
yes.
thing is, that's how we
Yeah.
met through the internet. We had DMs back and forth a little bit, and I said, hey, I'm going to be at Urban at this time, the court that we would play at.
Yeah.
And we met up and we instantly like connected and started talking about pickleball,
hit it
but
off,
then about
yeah.
life. But technically we were an internet like friendship meet cute.
Totally. And how many? And
Not
that's
that he remembers.
And that's happening all the time now. I mean, it's
It can happen if you're open to it.
exactly. And I'd be the first to say, like, I mean, my journey in, like, let's say the social media world, it's really still like a baby, like, just a year ago. And I'd be the first to say a couple years ago, I would talk probably negatively about all things social media and content. What's the purpose? What's the need? And that clearly that perspective has changed because I see the endless amount of good that it can do, the impact it can have.
Yeah.
And like if we go through hard times, like Kendall has shared, I know I've shared on the channel some of the the dark times I've gone through. Like why, like this is where social media is a blessing to be able to reach many people, and if it touches one life, like, oh my gosh, that's how fulfilling is that? I'm super thankful for my 9-to-5 job, and that's fulfilling in a lot of ways, but nothing is more fulfilling than like getting a comment from someone who shares like, man, what you said there, like that changed the way I thought, or that really helped me approach this conversation a little differently. Or, I was always kind of on the fence a little bit about like my faith. I was brought up in it. Now I want to dig a little deeper and just explore more. Or hey, would you be down to have a conversation about something? Like, and the answer is yes. Like I'm doing this nothing more than to really just share my faith, because I know if I got through some times that at times I didn't think I'd get through, like I want to be able to help others who may be on the fence of like, man, I don't know if I'm going to see tomorrow type of thing, and
No.
so.
Yeah. One thing for me is like I've been creating content a lot longer on the internet, like probably about 5.5 years. So I'm like, aw, baby creator vibes.
Yes, totally. I'm learning as I go.
But the thing here that I think is really important is you get to carve out a little space in the universe that is exactly how you want it to look.
Yeah.
And this is something that, again, that whole idea of like not enoughness, or like, do you believe in who you want to be? So many people approach it as, what's the market? What's going to get people to like and follow or whatever.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. Or, and this has served me really well, I've decided this is what is important to me. This is what I want to talk about. This is what people are interested in, that really resonates with me, that I get excited about. And that is the secret to what attracts the type of people that you want to work with. So you get to kind of have this say in like, no, this is what I want this content to feel like, and I want to feel like myself as I do it. That's the thing. People resonate with authenticity more than anything else, especially now.
Yeah.
And so you get to kind of decide what you want that to be or not be.
Exactly.
And you get to experiment and you get to iterate. But that is part of that's just like tale as old as time, that is the creative process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the theme here, as we all know, it's racket sports, it's faith, and it's breakthrough. And I love that, that infamous saying, if you can't do it for a decade, why do it for just a day? And I have that, as I started the channel, like that's the mindset, like the racket sports, faith, and breakthrough are like a part of me. They're a part of my DNA. And, I just want to, if it helps someone, have a little more faith, get through a tough time, learn a little bit more about like
pick up a racket.
Pick up a racket for just simple mental health reasons, physical health, like then I could feel very just so fulfilled and satisfied. More so than anything else outside of parenting.
Yeah,
really.
a day well done.
Yeah, like it's just so, yeah. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for staying till the end. Thank you, my friend, for being here, being a part of the conversation. I know I have a lot of takeaways to instantly start, practicing in my life to continue to just grow in faith, when life is lifing and we're facing some adversity, how to, overcome those challenges, shift the mindset, be more positive, practice the gratitude, and those sorts of things. So thank you for being here. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, so if you like kind of, I'll say my general vibe, the things I tend to talk about, I do have a newsletter called Wallflower Fridays. It's primarily where I talk about how you can tell more stories that sell, but I tend to bring in a lot of storytelling, so not just like the Mary story we talked through. I talked about movies and other things if you're looking for the kind of wisdom that we've talked about here today. But if that's interesting to you, you can sign up for the newsletter at wallflowerfridays.com.
Thank you. That's it. And always remember, your breakdown can always be your next breakthrough. We'll see you next time.